Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here. This is a session about running OpenDaylight on Windows. And so for those who brought your Windows laptop, my hope is that by the end of this session, you will exit running OpenDaylight on your Windows laptop. And if you didn't bring a Windows laptop, if you're running Linux, if you're running a Mac, if you've got your iPad, we'll also help you run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Windows Azure. So this is a lab. Everyone is welcome. You're welcome to participate in the lab. You're welcome to sit back, take notes, and try the lab at home at your leisure as well. My name is Rob Dolin. I'm a Senior Technical Program Manager for Microsoft Open Technologies. Microsoft Open Tech is a group at Microsoft that works on interoperability, open source, and standards. We're the guys that brought Linux to Windows Azure, bring Java to Windows Azure, work on a number of interoperability and open source things at Microsoft. Colleague on my left is Vin Balarao. Vin is our architect and dev lead for SDN and a number of other areas at Microsoft Open Tech. You can see both of our Twitter aliases up there. You can learn about Microsoft Open Tech. We've got our own little website, msopentech.com, and we're also on Twitter, open@Microsoft. So this is a lab. There's some things for this lab that are kind of big. So my encouragement to you guys while we're doing some of the intro pieces of the lab, that fourth bullet, bit.ly/ODL on win, the capitalization matters in the second part. If you go to that short URL, we've got instructions for all three of the flows here. Make sure the gentleman in front gets a picture of it. But bit.ly/ODL on Windows, those instructions are on the OpenDaylight wiki. They're wikified, I guess is the word. So if you notice something that's broken, notice something that's wrong, feel free to go in and edit the wiki, kind of within our community spirit. So a few prerequisites. If you're going to do this on your laptop, you're going to want to install Java. You're going to want to get yourself an OpenDaylight login if you don't already have one. And if you haven't enabled virtualization on your machine, you're going to want to do that. If you don't want to enable virtualization or your machine is a real old machine and can't do that, that's cool. You can run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Windows Azure. Just a caveat, some of those links on that wiki, actually almost all the links on the wiki are not maintained by Microsoft, so there's some software out there that's linked from some other companies, and I'd encourage you to use that software, but if you need support on that software, you may need to reach out to some of those other companies rather than reaching out to myself or Vin. So there's a few options for running OpenDaylight on Windows. So the first one, which I think is likely to be the majority of folks in this room, let me just show of hands. Who's got a Windows PC? Who's got a Windows PC? Is that almost everybody? Danielle's got two in the back. Awesome. So if you've got a Windows PC and it's not running Windows 8 or it's not running Windows Server, that first set of instructions might be what you want to do. If you don't have a Windows PC, you've got a Mac, you've got Linux, you've got your iPad, you can still run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Azure. That's the second set of instructions. We've got a third scenario where you can run OpenDaylight plus Mininet in a Hyper-V virtual machine instead of like A as a VirtualBox virtual machine. Who's familiar with Mininet, by the way? So got a few yes, a few no. So OpenDaylight's a network controller, which is fun. But it's really good if you have a network to control. And so Mininet is a network simulator. So you can use OpenDaylight in combination with Mininet. So you've got the network controller, and then you've got a little simulated network on Mininet, and they can talk to each other, and that makes running OpenDaylight a lot more fun and more interesting. The fourth scenario there, if you've got a machine that has Hyper-V, is anyone here going to do Hyper-V on their machine, or are folks going to use VirtualBox for virtualization? Hyper-V? VirtualBox? VirtualBox? Okay, is anyone doing Hyper-V? When he gets home, he's going to do Hyper-V. Okay, so the Hyper-V scenario, we'll kind of go through these in vertical order. Is that cool? And I was going to try to make some joke about what scenario E would be running OpenDaylight on your Windows phone. I haven't tried it. I don't know if it works, but This is open source. This is software. I'd be very excited if anyone does try it, and let me know if it works. That'd be awesome. So we are ready to switch to demos and lab. I'm going to turn the podium over to Vin. And we were going to try to do this as a live demo, but we had some projection issues with projecting from Vin's laptop. Luckily, we've got screenshots, so Vin's going to talk through the screenshots. And then, as you guys should all be downloading the software and trying to do this on your laptops, or for those who are watching on video, you should be trying to do this at home, and that link, that wiki page, will hopefully get better with time.
Where do you have the one with Windows locally?
Let's see.
No, not that.
Which one do you need?
The Windows locally.
Of running OpenDaylight on Windows Azure, then scenario C of OpenDaylight plus Mininet and Hyper-V, and then we're going to come back and we're going to do a live demo of the scenario that a lot of folks in the room are working on, of running OpenDaylight on your laptop plus VirtualBox. This will hopefully give people some time to get the various components downloaded, and then hopefully this will make sure that we've got at least a consistent set of video for the first introduction plus the first two demos.
Hello? Okay. So let's get started. So as Rob mentioned, we have Windows Azure, and we have been running OpenDaylight on Windows VM in Windows Azure. and also Mininet in a Linux VM, again on Windows Azure. So this is not like, we are not trying to integrate OpenDaylight into Azure or anything like that. This is basically just essentially a development setup where you have a VM running OpenDaylight and then another VM running Mininet. And I'm going to show you the whole process of actually doing it live takes longer than the amount of time that we have. So I'm just going to show you a sequence that we did earlier. So the first thing you have to do to get started on Azure is you need to get a free subscription. So you can just go to this website and just sign up for free. It's a subscription that allows you to play with Windows Azure. Once you have subscribed, you'll be able to log into the portal. And so this is the Windows Azure portal. And typically, just like any other cloud provider, you will have virtual machines, you'll have virtual disks, various services, and so on. So you started with that. First thing that you do is to create a Mininet VM. So basically what we have done is that we have taken the Mininet that is available on the web, or the open source Mininet, and then we have created a image for Azure out of that. And that image is loaded into something called VM Depot, which is basically like a library of VMs that you can have. Anybody can upload images there. So we have uploaded an image for Mininet, and it's an Ubuntu VM. So basically, once you go into the portal, then you can choose that image. And you can, so basically the process, the way it works is that you choose an image from VM Depot. It first has to be copied into your own account. And then from that account, then you can instantiate VMs from it. So that's the process that takes a little bit longer than we have time for. So so we are skipping that part. So basically, once you choose an image here, it'll ask you which, like you may have multiple storage accounts in your Azure subscription. So you can choose which location and which account you want to go into. Once you do that, as I said, it takes a while. And then after that, you have copied the VM image from the VM Depot into your own subscription. Once you copied it, you still have to register it. So that's the next step, is you register. And then after you have registered it, basically it says pending registration. So it takes a little bit of time for that to register. So once you register it, now you're ready to actually create a VM using that VM image. And so again, you go into the VM create menu, and in that there is a virtual machine, and then within that there is a submenu called gallery. So once you go in there, then you have a choice of all these various images that are available. Since you copied the image from VM Depot into your account, now it is available under My Images. So you go into My Images, and you will see the image that you copied. Mininet on Ubuntu will be there. You choose that, and then you provide details like the name of the machine, what size you want, the name of the login account, and stuff like that. You would have to create a private key and load SSH key, and then load that up here. After that, you get to specify the name of the service, where you want it. There are various availability sets that you can put it into depending upon your performance requirements and so on. You do that. After that, since it knows that it's a Linux Ubuntu machine, it will give you an SSH endpoint already. So using that, then you'll be able to log into the machine once it's created. So after that, a machine will be created for you. Now the way you connect to a Linux machine from Windows is you use this utility called PuTTY. And basically you specify, as you see, like I've specified the name of the machine that I created, which is WinBMN, cloudapp.net. And 22 was the port that was given to us for SSH. And I've loaded the SSH key into that. So here I've specified that in the SSH submenu, in auth submenu within that, you can see in the browse thing, there is a file path there. So that's the key I've given. So once you do that, you're in. You get a little putty window, and you can log in. And you specify the same login name that you had specified when you created the VM. So I had specified just Mininet. You could have specified anything else. Once you do that, basically the Mininet will be running. But then that's just the Mininet part of it. You still have to create a Windows virtual machine now so that you can put OpenDaylight on it. So you go back to the Azure portal, and you again go and say, I want to create a new virtual machine. And you can again do it either from gallery or create. I'm just using quick create right now. It's easier. And in there, you basically just give it a name. Again, I've given WinBODL, and then the image is a Windows Server 2012. You could choose Windows Server 2008 also. Again, the size, username, password, etc. You specify all of that. Once you do that, again, it'll take a little bit of time, and you'll get a machine. So that's that WinBODL machine that you're seeing there. Once the machine is created, you can go into the dashboard. And a couple of things you should notice over here is I've highlighted the IP address there, 137.117. So that will become useful when you want to connect your Mininet to this instance. Go next. A couple of things that you need to do on this VM is the Mininet itself needs a port that it can connect to. So that port is the TCP port. So I mean, by default, you'll get these two ports, but we'll create a couple more ports for Mininet and also for OpenDaylight itself. It uses 8080, and Mininet uses 6633. So you do that by saying add an endpoint to the virtual machine, add a standalone endpoint, because this is not a this is just a development scenario basically. OpenDaylight, I've given it the name OpenDaylight for this particular endpoint. It's TCP, and port is 8080. Go ahead, create that one. Then you create another one for Mininet, which is 6633. Once you do that, then you'll see both of those endpoints have been created. So now actually your VM has opened these two ports to the external world. You can access it from any public machine. So once you do that, you can now connect to the machine. So the way you connect to the machine is actually, let me just go back. And there is a little connect button at the bottom. Okay, I don't have the screenshot for that. But once you go to the dashboard, there is a connect button there. So you click that, and it will save a remote desktop link to your machine. Once you click that, you will get the remote desktop login. And in there, you get to specify the same account and the password that you had specified when you created the VM. Once you do that, you are in the machine. So as I said, this is a Windows 2000 Server 12 machine. So you'll get the UI for Windows Server 2012. Once you go in there, again, this is the machine on which we are going to run OpenDaylight. So it's a Java program. So you need to install Java on that machine first. So you go to the Java website, download Java from there. Takes a while. After that, it's installed. Then the second thing you need to do is to set up the Java home environment variable. One thing I would advise is by default, it'll say C program files, etc., etc. But you should choose the short path, because various Java programs don't like it if you use the long path with space in the middle. So for example, you can see like it says C program ~1. So that's the short path. Once you do that, that part is done. And then you still have to, again, Windows by default will have its firewall turned on. And you don't want to turn off the whole firewall. You want to open specific ports within that. So again, we need to open the 8080 and 6633, those two ports. So you go into Windows Network and Sharing Center. In there, you go into Advanced Settings. And once you go into Advanced Settings, you get this little UI where you get to configure your firewall whichever way you want. So there you will see like there is an inbound rules item on the left side. You click on that. and then you say, then the next one is you say in the right-hand side, again in inbound rules, there is a new rule. So that's the new rule we are creating. And then for the new rule, basically, it's a port that we want to open. So click on the port. It's a TCP port. So TCP specific port number is 8080. Once you do that, you say, yeah, I want to open the port, so allow the connection. For now, I've specified all of them, domain, private, and public, but you can be as specific as you need. Give it some name, OpenDaylight. You do that. Same thing again for the 6633 port, so same sequence of steps. Once you do that, that is all done. Now you go to the OpenDaylight distribution. So this is basically the OpenDaylight.org, where you can collect the latest build of OpenDaylight or the Hydrogen build or whichever build you want. Download that. Once it's downloaded, you can unzip it, and then you get a directory structure that looks like this. So there is a OpenDaylight folder, and in that folder, there are a few folders, and then there is this run.bat. And that run.bat is the one that you want to run. So on Linux, you'll be running run.sh. On Windows, it'll be run.bat. Once you go there, so you open a command window, go to the directory, do run.bat. Once you do that, OpenDaylight will be running in that window. It takes about, I would say, about 15 to 20 seconds for it to kind of completely initialize. Once it initialized, you can open up a browser window and go to localhost:8080. So that's the port on which OpenDaylight's UI can be seen. The standard login that they have is just admin and admin. So you specify that. You go in there and you get the default OpenDaylight UI. And as I said, we are running Mininet in the background now, but we haven't yet connected the Mininet to the OpenDaylight. So right now you cannot see anything there. So you need to go back to your Mininet. So this is the Mininet window, the putty window that we had started earlier. And in there, now you need to start a command, which is sudo mn, and then controller equal to remote, because in this case, we are saying that my controller is going to be remote. And its IP address is 137.117, which is basically the IP address of the public port here. So it's for the Windows virtual VM, the public IP address of that will be specified there. And then for the testing purposes, I'm just saying that create me a tree topology of 2 levels. So basically, you will get one switch connected to 2 switches, and then each of those 2 switches connected to 2 VMs. So once you do that, it'll go ahead and I've executed a couple of commands there. So basically, in the first one, it went ahead and created all the switches and the hosts and made the connections between them, connected the controller, and so on. Then the first thing you should do is just do a ping all. So basically, the way that OpenDaylight, one of the applications there that they have set up is called simple forwarding. And when you run ping all on any kind of network traffic for the first time, it will discover the various hosts. So once you run that, and what I've noticed is that sometimes it'll time out the first time, but if you run it second time, they will all succeed. So in this case, as you can see, there are 4 hosts created, and each one is trying to ping the other one. And so the first set of pings, some of them failed, but in the second one, all of them succeeded. So once you do that, you can go back to your browser and just refresh the page, and you will see the topology that they created. So this is the tree level 2 topology that you had specified. And beyond this, it's just like any other installation of OpenDaylight. You can browse around. You can go to the flows tab, or you can go to the troubleshoot tab where you can see statistics and so on. So that's sort of the basic scenario for running OpenDaylight on Windows Azure. Are there any questions? Yeah.
It looked like you used certificates to get into Linux, the passwords to get into Windows.
Right. Yes. So for the Linux VM, we had specified a key, SSH key, and so we use that one for the Linux VM. But for the Windows VM, we had just specified a password. And so when we do remote desktop, you just specify that password in there, and you connect it to that way. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you can use various mechanisms. So yeah, whatever, whichever mechanism works for you. So yeah. No, so basically what we have here is a configuration where we have a Windows VM, just a box in the cloud, running Windows, and on that machine we have Java installed, and then we have OpenDaylight installed, which is just a Java program. No. OpenDaylight is actually running on Windows here. So so we created two VMs. There was one VM which is a Windows VM, and that is running OpenDaylight. And then we created a second VM, which was a Ubuntu Linux VM, and that is running Mininet, because Mininet is only available on Linux. There is no Windows version of Mininet available yet. So we had to do it that way, but basically OpenDaylight itself is running on Windows.
So it's Java is running, but how is it controlling Windows? Can you provision it? Can you provision Windows box using OpenDaylight?
So, I mean, you can provision Windows using Azure. So you can, maybe if you want to run multiple OpenDaylight installations or multiple boxes running OpenDaylight, you could instantiate multiple Windows VMs, and each of them with OpenDaylight. And then you could, So it's the controller and the OpenFlow plugin. So basically, the Hydrogen release that is available today, all the code that is running in there is Java code. And so those can be run on Windows. Now, if you have specific networking switches or networking hardware or whatever, which you want to control using OpenDaylight, that would be outside of that. But again, for development purposes, basically what we're saying is that you can use Mininet. Mininet is a way of creating a virtual network inside a VM. So with Mininet and OpenDaylight, you essentially have a complete system, at least as far as development is concerned. So you can create various networking topologies, you can set up flows, and you can do all kinds of experiments and everything. It won't be like a real network. I mean, when you want to go to a real network, then you would have real networking switches and so on. And then you would have to set up connections with those, yeah. Right.
For example, if Linux is running, if OpenDaylight is running on Linux, how would it provision a Windows box?
No, I think what you're talking about is beyond the scope of what we are discussing here. I think basically what you're talking about is more of just a cloud infrastructure or cloud provisioning system, which could be either just Windows Azure itself can do that, or there are other open source alternatives for doing that.
So what I'm trying to ask is, how would I use OpenDaylight in a production environment where I have Windows boxes and I want to use OpenDaylight to provision them, create VMs, and destroy?
Right. So do you want to? Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, you would need the networking.
So let me try to restate the question for the folks on video, and then I'll try to answer the part I think I can answer and explain the part that I think I can't answer. So the question, if I understood it, was I've got this OpenDaylight network controller. Let's say I have some hosts that are not Mininet, but maybe those hosts are Hyper-V hosts. And maybe I have not a Mininet virtual switch or OVS virtual switch. Maybe I have some other virtual switch. Maybe it's or some other switch. Maybe it's virtual. Maybe it's physical. How would I connect this system? So OpenDaylight is Java code, is a Java-based network controller, and that can run on Windows, can run on Linux, I think it can run on Mac. I haven't tried it myself, but it can, says the gentleman in front. And then in terms of communicating with network elements like switches or bridges or other network elements, OpenDaylight has what they call the SAL, this abstraction layer. And then the SAL has multiple protocol plugins. So there's a OpenFlow 1.0 plugin, a OpenFlow 1.3 plugin, a Open Virtual Switch Database or OVSDB plugin. And depending on the switch, you would match the switch with the plugin, and then you would communicate, and then you would have OpenDaylight with the appropriate plugin talking to a physical or virtual switch in your potential production environment. In terms of, so I think that's the summary of the question and what I know of the answer. In terms of what we've been able to demo here, we've got OpenDaylight running on Windows, we've got OpenDaylight running on Windows talking to Mininet. I don't know the exact answer, or I don't have a demo of the exact answer to how would this talk to a different switch. I think in general it varies significantly by the protocol and the network elements, so different switches might implement different protocols, but I would be glad to let's swap contact information and potentially take the question, continue the conversation outside of this forum in OpenDaylight Discuss or in the controller dev or controller users or some of the other forums and aliases that the general broad community has. I want to make sure that we're both covering questions as well as making sure that folks who want to actually get this running on their laptops are getting it running. Are the folks who are following the instructions to get it running on their laptops is anyone hitting any snags, or are folks kind of, Tyson? The Java home environment variable not being set.
Okay. Did you restart your command window after that? So once you change it, then you can just close it and start it again. Yeah. Okay.
So I want to save some time for me and Vin to kind of go around and help individuals that are having issues like that. But are there other general questions about running OpenDaylight on a virtual machine on Windows Azure? So there is something called VM Depot. It's http vmdepot.msopentech.com. It is a place you can go to find virtual machines that have been built to run on Azure, and it's community populated, so members of the community have uploaded virtual machines there. And if you do a search there, one of the community uploaded virtual machines is a virtual machine that runs Mininet. So that's effectively what Vin showed. Is he had gone and selected that community machine that runs Mininet, and I've been in touch with Luis from the integration team about uploading a bunch of virtual machines to VM Depot that have OpenDaylight pre-built, each of the various editions of OpenDaylight. It's something that potentially folks in this room could do as well. Are there other general questions about running OpenDaylight on Azure? Okay, let's, if it's okay with the folks in the back of the room, let's switch laptops and then try the live demo of OpenDaylight on the laptop plus Mininet in a virtual machine on the laptop, and then we'll have time. And then we'll have time at the end for myself and Vin to go around and help folks that may be having individual issues. The question was, is there another place to go get Mininet? Because you said it's taking 57 minutes. I believe the MiniNet virtual machine is something like 600 megs, so it's pretty big, and given the Wi-Fi here, that 57 minutes might be an accurate estimate, unfortunately. If you do a web search, I believe you can find a OVF file of MiniNet. There's also a link in the instructions on the OpenDaylight wiki for where you can find that, but I fear it's not a small download.
Yeah, I mean, even that is even longer. Yeah, that's even longer. So yeah, yeah. Yeah.
The suggestion from the gentleman on my right was next time bring a USB. Are we ready to swap laptops? All right. Folks who are watching video, please accept our apologies as we switch laptops.
So we don't want to do the
Time-wise, let's...
Hey, it's better. It came on for a while, and then
Right. Well, all right.
okay, it's on now. Oh, gone.
Go back to... Let's go.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, that's not it.
okay, that's better.
Yeah. We go, awesome. Well,
There's loose connection.
I don't... Let's go back to this one. This one was holding. Let me go in the back.
obviously you want to operate from here, right?
Okay. Well, so as you can see, this is the problem we have been studying right from the beginning. There is a video problem. But since we want to do a live demo, and it's set up on this machine, so I hope you'll forgive us for that. So basically what I want to show here today is the sort of the standard development setup that OpenDaylight developers can use. Yeah. Yeah, so I want to show the standard setup that OpenDaylight developers can use. Hello? Okay. So again, when you go to the OpenDaylight download page, from there you can download the distribution. So you will get it like this, something like OpenDaylight.osgi package.zip. You can unzip it. So when you unzip it, you go into this folder, you get an OpenDaylight folder. Inside of that, you will get the plugins and all of those things. The main interesting thing for you here is this run.bat. So I have opened a command window here. Which is looking in that folder. And I'm going to do run.bat. So as I said, basically this starts OpenDaylight, the environment, and then it loads all the plugins. It takes let's say about 15 to 20 seconds for the whole initialization to complete. There's a bunch of plugins that are getting loaded. So it takes a little bit of time. Once it has gotten to that point where it has loaded various things, you can now okay, let me just wait for a little bit longer. So okay, so I'm going to start Chrome, and in Chrome I'm going to go to just the localhost :8080. And this will again bring you the OpenDaylight web UI. Looks like there is still some more initialization going on. Okay, so I think we should be there now. Okay, so and then the default login is just admin and admin. So you log in. And just like in the previous time, so we haven't yet connected the mininet to that. So you're going to get just the default UI with no network underneath it. So now we're going to show you how you can set up VirtualBox with mininet running in a VM and connect that mininet to OpenDaylight. So here I have VirtualBox running. This is just, you can just download from the Oracle site from where you get VirtualBox. And here you go, and then you say import appliance. And again, over here, I had already downloaded. So if you go to the mininet, if you just search for mininet on the web, you will find a VirtualBox PhD for mininet. So you go in here and you'll get something like this. Basically, there will be a VMDK and an OVF file. So you go into VirtualBox. So that's the format that VirtualBox understands. So you go into VirtualBox and you look for that. So ODL Summit, Mininet OVF. So this is the Mininet VM OVF. Choose that. You go next. Just whatever the default over here works for me. So you go ahead with that. Go in here. It'll take few seconds for the VM to get created. So basically, here, in order for you to do this, an important thing that you need to do is you need to make sure that your laptop or your machine has virtualization enabled. So many times there might be a laptop or something which doesn't have virtualization enabled. So you need to go into BIOS, and there is a setting there to say enable virtualization. Once it's enabled, then it'll work. The other scenario, just one second, the other scenario where you might have difficulty is if you are already running in a VM, like let's say that this machine was a Windows Azure VM, then you will not be able to do this. So it cannot be a VM already, and so it should be a regular machine, and it should be, the virtualization should be enabled on that one. Yeah. The OVF, yeah. I mean, those two go together. So the OVF and the VMDK, they go together. So, but you, yeah. I mean, no. I mean, basically, when you download the package from Mininet, it will contain all of those things. So you just download it, unzip it, then it'll be on your machine. Then you go into VirtualBox, you say import appliance, and then you import the OVF file, not the VMDK. In fact, it won't even show you the VMDK. It's like it already, it's already filtered for showing you only the OVF file. So once that is done, okay, the VM has been created. Now you can start it. So you just click on the start button. And it'll just initialize Mininet. You can close down these little things that show up. Basically, they want to warn you that your keyboard will be captured and your mouse will be captured and so on. So you can just say yes to that. So then you get the Mininet login, and you can specify the same one, Mininet, and the same password. So now Mininet is initialized, and now you're going to have to do the same Mininet start command. So here what you're going to do is you're going to do sudo mn controller equal to remote, IP equal to, and now you need to know what is the IP address of your machine. So what you do is you go into just start another command window, and in Windows, the command for determining your IP configuration is ipconfig. And you will see an IP address there. So IPv4 address 10.36.1.4. So you go here, 10.36.1.4, 1.4, and then give the same topology. So 3,2. So this same command that we executed on the other Azure instance. And again, you will see a bunch of switches will be created, hosts will be created, and you will see actually like it actually shows you how the things are connected to each other. So host H1 is connected to switch S2, host S2 is connected to S2, so on. They're all configured, everything is ready. Now you can do ping all. So this again, first time some of those might time out. But again, second time, they will work. So it just takes a little bit of time initially. Yeah, every time it looks like it's taking a long time, there is a potential that it'll time out and you'll get an X. Yeah, but then you do it again. By that time, it has discovered everything, so everything works. You go back to your OpenDaylight that you had started. No, not this one. And now if you refresh, you'll get your network. Of course, by default, it doesn't know how to organize the picture correctly. So you might have to go and just rearrange the switches so that they look good. So that's basically the network that you created with 3 switches and 4 hosts. And then again, you can do all of the things like you can go into flows and you can create flows, delete flows, whatever. You can go and check the statistics on various flows and so on. The other thing is, so let me just, so here you can basically create different kinds of topologies and you can experiment with various things. The other thing I wanted to point out is that this mininet right now I'm just running it just the built binaries, but you could be running it through Eclipse. So you could modify the code, build it, run it through Eclipse. That also works. Everything works on Windows. So you can just load the project into Eclipse, build it, fix any bugs or whatever. Everything works. Yeah. Yes, yes, yeah. So, no, you can do it that way too. So for example, I think Madhu Venugopal, the developer on OpenDaylight, has demonstrated that you can actually do that. So you can basically with OVSDB plugin that they have, you can so instead of this is sort of being done in a reactive manner where the network is being discovered and then displayed in the window. But you could do it the other way where OpenDaylight basically tells where the switch is. Right. So actually, yeah, I don't know a lot about it, but basically there is this connection manager. So you can go into the connection manager and add node. Yeah, and then you can specify the connection parameters for the node. So the IP address, the port, etc. He actually has a tutorial on that on YouTube. So if you just search YouTube, OpenDaylight, OVSDB, something like that, there are a bunch of tutorials on not just doing this, but also debugging it and that kind of stuff. Yeah. So it's very useful. So yeah. So anyway, so this was just a quick demo of just getting everything running on your laptop and debugging and so on. Yeah.
So what connectivity do you have for the mininet right now? Can it reach the outside world?
So right now, what do you mean by reaching the outside world?
Can I ping Google.com from here? Because your laptop can. So I'm
Right.
just asking what connectivity does this
So
have?
so we specified, like when we started the remote controller on the command line, we specified a remote controller IP address. And if you have a way to get out to the external world, you should be able to connect to that.
So what do the routes look like right now that this network that you have created? So you created some mininet, right?
Right.
What is the routing look like on this? How will it allow me to go out?
No, I think what you're talking about is if your switches or your hosts could be.
For example, I create another VM with a mininet in it. Can I connect it to it?
I believe you can, but I don't.
So how's the connectivity
Right.
work?
Right. I'm not sure how that works. So yeah,
I would say if someone in this room tries it, so it's just to run Mininet, it's just this Mininet command sudo mn, tell it the controller IP, and then give it a topology. In this case, the topology was a tree of depth 2, and you can see that topology here. But try it with a second controller and share with the room and the gentleman in front how it works out.
The controller IP, how do you get the controller IP? Do you have to assign it a public IP or you have to
no. So in this case, I just showed you like you can do IP config, and it will show you the IP address of your machine that is running.
And so you're using the same IP address as, okay, so but then you cannot have two.
Yeah.
Is there a connection, connection from OpenDaylight to each of the virtual switches in order to give it set up commands for it?
I don't know if it is with. Is it with each switch or is it with the whole mininet?
No, each switch. So so each mininet is like its own switch.
Well, is that 3 switches in die?
how is the connectivity there? Because the switch has the address of the host. The controller has the address of the host, and these guys are 10.0.3. So how does the routing work?
This is all internal. This is all virtual, so it's all internal. You're essentially creating these virtual networks, and they're communicating with each other because you can find the IP address of each of the virtual machines.
Right, but I'm not interested in the virtual machines, the guys at the bottom of the 10.123. I'm interested in how did the controller talk to the virtual switches to set up the.
Yeah, so I mean, for example, you can do, like, for example, if you want to set up a flow on one of the switches, so you can go here, you can say add a flow entry, and then here you get to specify which of the 3 switches that you want to set up the flow on. So the controller can set up flows inside individual switches, or for that matter, look at the statistics from each of the switches. So you can go here, and so all these 3 switches are specified here, and then for each flow on the switch or each port on the switch, you can collect statistics. So there is a connection between each of the switches and the controller.
Well, I mean, those look like MAC addresses.
Right. Right. So that part I'm not absolutely sure about. I mean, we are not Mininet experts, so. Right.
So from a process standpoint, I'm going to take the question, let's take the question from the gentleman on my right, then the question from the gentleman in front on my left. We are approximate, so we have this room for the next 55 minutes to continue the lab, but I also know that there are sessions that are starting very soon. So if folks want to go to another session, I don't want you to feel like you have to stay here. So let's kind of take a temporary breather now for folks who want to go to sessions. Feel free to step out. We'll take the 2 questions, and then myself and Vin will come around and help folks that are trying to get OpenDaylight running on their machines. So temporary breather. If anyone wants to step out so they can catch the next session, feel free to do so. Gentleman on my right.
So I think in an attempt to try to help get clarity and about what happens here, if you can go into the virtual box that's active and open the settings for that VM, I'm curious to see what the network interface configures you act as. Is it doing address translation? It is. Okay, so that the IP address that we are using is the public IP address as far as the VM is concerned. And that's basically the way into the system. So VirtualBox itself is a built-in net driver, which is what's involved here to get out to the outside world from the internet.
That, as you described, that makes sense to me. Gentlemen, did
My question is that at the moment, what is the protocol between the controller and the switches?
the question was, what is the protocol between the controller and the switches that are in Mininet? Is it OpenFlow or OVSDB or some other protocol? So and Vin, correct me if I'm wrong on this, I believe the protocol that's used in this case is OpenFlow 1.0.
Yeah, it's OpenFlow, not Open vSwitch.
Did you specify the protocol in the
No, I did not specify it there. Basically, I'm using the OpenFlow plugin in OpenDaylight. So OpenFlow plugin talks the OpenFlow protocol. So that's how it's going. You could, I mean, they also have an OVSDB plugin. And if you invoke that, you'll be able to talk OVSDB with that. So, but that's not what we did here. So yeah, looks like, I mean, a lot of the questions are really sort of generic OpenDaylight, OpenFlow kind of questions, not really specific to Windows. So what I would suggest is like OpenDaylight, website or the various people over here. A lot of people who are way more expert at OpenDaylight itself than how to get it to run on Windows, basically. So I would direct the questions to them. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, that's why we have to run it in a virtual box so that there is a virtual VM basically that is running it. Right. Yes, I mean, Eclipse runs on Windows, OpenDaylight runs on Windows, so you can do all the debugging, everything on Windows. We have been doing it. It works, yeah.
On Windows, what is the preferred method to capture packets or look at traces? Like TCP dump or is it something else?
Yeah, there is a tool called Wireshark.
Wireshark is
Yeah, Wireshark is there.
I would say the question was, what is the preferred method for capturing packets? I'm not sure there's necessarily a preferred method. I know that every individual developer may have their preferred tool set. Vin mentioned that he enjoys Wireshark.
But what I wanted to do is there a Microsoft specific or Windows specific tool, because these are all open source tools that seem to work on, that tend to work on Windows also, but is there anything developed by a graphic tool or something like that to look at traces and things like that? Because I want to trace how this networking happens, but I'm not a Windows person, so I wouldn't know how to trace the packets between this.
Right. I'm not aware of it.
The question was, is there a Windows-specific tool for tracing the packets? Vin and I are both not aware of a specific one. Yep. Prabhu in the back recommends Netmon. If you're doing HTTP, personally, I really enjoy Fiddler tool, but it's more specific to HTTP, not some of the binary protocols. Question here? The question was, Microsoft Hyper-V uses GRE. Does Microsoft have any product that currently supports OpenFlow? I'm going to look to my colleague Prabhu in the back to see if he knows the answer on this one. Let me take a quick poll of the room here. How many folks are working on getting this working on their laptop right now? We've got... The question was how to get the zip package from Jenkins. So are there any, I want to make sure that the folks who are trying to do the lab have a chance to get one-on-one help. Are there any other questions that folks have that would be applicable to the group?
I just wanted to say thank you for this presentation. You guys are just great.
Thank you very much, Jim. Question from the front here. So the question was trying to download the source code and run it using the instructions that are on the wiki. I actually did it on a Sunday on my Windows laptop maybe 3 months ago. I'm not sure if I'm looking at the same wiki page because the wiki changes, but shoot me an email and I can make sure that I get you the page that I used. And I would encourage you to send a message if you're trying to just do controller. Send a message to controller dev or controller users. They have very active aliases. If you're using something else, possibly send a message to discuss. And if those don't work, also hit up the IRC channel. It's just pound OpenDaylight on IRC, and it's active literally 24/7. Sir? Mm-hmm. The question was, what other pieces of the Windows platform work with OpenDaylight?
What does the Windows platform deliver in combination with OpenDaylight?
I'm not totally sure I understand the question. Did we swap contact info? Let's try and take it offline on email if that's all right. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming to this session. Vin is already helping someone who's working on getting this running on their laptop, and I'll be down to help as well. Thank you again. You can see both of our Twitter aliases up there. You can learn about Microsoft OpenTech. We've got our own little website, msopentech.com, and we're also on Twitter, open@Microsoft. So this is a lab. There's some things for this lab that are kind of big. So my encouragement to you guys while we're doing some of kind of the intro pieces of the lab, that fourth bullet, bit.ly/ODL on win, the capitalization matters in the second part. If you go to that short URL, we've got instructions for all three of the flows here. Make sure the gentleman in front gets a picture of it. But bit.ly/ODL on Windows, those instructions are on the OpenDaylight wiki. They're wikified, I guess is the word. So if you notice something that's broken, notice something that's wrong, feel free to go in and edit the wiki, kind of within our community spirit. So a few prerequisites. If you're going to do this on your laptop, you're going to want to install Java. You're going to want to get yourself an OpenDaylight login if you don't already have one. And if you haven't enabled virtualization on your machine, you're going to want to do that. If you don't want to enable virtualization or your machine is a real old machine and can't do that, that's cool. You can run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Windows Azure. Just a caveat, some of those links on that wiki, actually almost all the links on the wiki are not maintained by Microsoft, so there's some software out there that's linked from some other companies, and I'd encourage you to use that software, but if you need support on that software, you may need to reach out to some of those other companies rather than reaching out to myself or Vin. So there's a few options for running OpenDaylight on Windows. So the first one, which I think is likely to be the majority of folks in this room, let me just show of hands. Who's got a Windows PC? Who's got a Windows PC? Is that almost everybody? Danielle's got 2 in the back. Awesome. So if you've got a Windows PC and it's not running Windows 8 or it's not running Windows Server, that first set of instructions might be what you want to do. If you don't have a Windows PC, you've got a Mac, you've got Linux, you've got your iPad, you can still run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Azure. That's the second set of instructions. We've got a third scenario where you can run OpenDaylight plus Mininet in a Hyper-V virtual machine instead of like A as a VirtualBox virtual machine. Who's familiar with Mininet, by the way? Well, thank you very much, everyone, for joining us here. This is a session about running OpenDaylight on Windows. And so for those who brought your Windows laptop, my hope is that by the end of this session, you will exit running OpenDaylight on your Windows laptop. And if you didn't bring a Windows laptop, if you're running Linux, if you're running a Mac, if you've got your iPad, we'll also help you run OpenDaylight as a virtual machine on Windows Azure. So this is a lab. Everyone is welcome. You're welcome to participate in the lab. You're welcome to sit back, take notes, and try the lab at home at your leisure as well. My name is Rob Dolin. I'm a Senior Technical Program Manager for Microsoft Open Technologies. Microsoft Open Tech is a group at Microsoft that works on interoperability, open source, and standards. We're the guys that brought Linux to Windows Azure, bring Java to Windows Azure, work on a number of interoperability and open source things at Microsoft. Colleague on my left is Vin Balarao. Vin is our architect and dev lead for SDN and a number of other areas at Microsoft Open Tech. So got a few yes, a few no. So OpenDaylight's a network controller, which is fun. But it's really good if you have a network to control. And so Mininet is a network simulator. So you can use OpenDaylight in combination with Mininet. So you've got the network controller, and then you've got a little simulated network on Mininet, and they can talk to each other, and that makes running OpenDaylight a lot more fun and more interesting. The fourth scenario there, if you've got a machine that has Hyper-V, is anyone here going to do Hyper-V on their machine, or are folks going to use VirtualBox for virtualization? Hyper-V? VirtualBox? VirtualBox? Okay, is anyone doing Hyper-V? When he gets home, he's going to do Hyper-V. Okay, so the Hyper-V scenario, we'll kind of go through these in vertical order. Is that cool? And I was going to try to make some joke about what scenario E would be running OpenDaylight on your Windows phone. I haven't tried it. I don't know if it works, but this is open source. This is software. I'd be very excited if anyone does try it, and let me know if it works. That'd be awesome. So we are ready to switch to demos and lab. I'm going to turn the podium over to Vin. And we were going to try to do this as a live demo, but we had some projection issues with projecting from Vin's laptop. Luckily, we've got screenshots, so Vin's going to talk through the screenshots. And then, as you guys should all be downloading the software and trying to do this on your laptops, or for those who are watching on video, you should be trying to do this at home, and that link, that wiki page, will hopefully get better with time.
Where do you have the one with Windows locally?
Let's see.
No, not that.
Which one do you need?
The Windows locally.